Hello, class. Now we're continuing with Rebecca Cron's essay, looking at some subchapters we haven't already talked about. So now we're looking at Cron's 7th subchapter, Utility, Wagers, and Gambles. So Cron opens with a quote from the French experimental biologist Jean Rostand, with one of the people to propose the idea of cryonics and cryogenics in the preface to the 1962 work, self-published book from the father of the cryonics movement, The Prospect of Immortality. So on page 22, Rostand is quoted as pointing out that, quote, "We have nothing to lose and possibly everything to gain by pressing in search. It is, in a sense, a Pascal's wager based on faith and science." So in other words, pressing in the search of cryonics, cryonic preservation, so on and so forth, unquote. So, which is basically the proposal that putting our faith in by putting our faith in cryonics, we really have nothing to lose, right, for Rostand. So after all, the possibility of a future life after we die now is better than the possibility of simply dying the first time around, right? So Rostand is suggesting this gamble rests on Pascal's wager, right? But what is Pascal's wager, right? In general, with reference to cryonics. Such a wager was developed by the 17th century mathematician Blaise Pascal. He was born in 1623 and died in 1662. So this is a way to demonstrate that the benefits of believing in God outweighs the odds of not believing in God, okay? So for Pascal, we really can't say for certain that God exists, yet if we were to wager one way or the other, the potential benefits outweigh the potential harm, okay? So what I'll do is I'll draw you a diagram of what we're pointing out here, okay? And so number one, if you wager for God and he exists, infinite happiness, etc., you will get infinite happiness, etc., good, eternal paradise in heaven, okay? So number two, if you wager against God and he exists, this is equivalent to infinite loss in eternal damnation, and you have wagered a belief in God, okay? So then 4, if God does not exist, you have the finite loss of having worshipped God for a finite amount of time, which is equivalent to a lifetime, which is a finite loss, okay? Number 5, if God does not exist, you have wagered a disbelief in God, then you only have a finite gain, a life that is distinguished without God, okay? So like I said, I'm going to lay out a diagram for you so that's a little clearer here, okay? So if we apply Pascal's wager to cryonics, the so-called cryonic payoff matrix, as Cron refers to it, it really looks as if we have everything to gain and very little to lose, right? So, and I'll lay out a diagram for that too. Okay, so essentially, given Pascal's wager, the possibility of immense gain far outweighs the possible loss, which is simply to die, rather than opening the possibility for a future life that would benefit you if you simply did not opt for cryonic suspension. So initially, with the cryonic payoff matrix, as Cron refers to it, it seems best to bet to go for cryonics. We have nothing to lose and everything to gain. as a result of the gamble, okay, the Pascal's wager. Yet, as Cron points out, these are there are ethical objections that should be seriously taken into consideration as specified earlier, right? So from a utilitarian standpoint, there are better ways to spend your money, okay? So instead of opting for cryonics, given that it's really expensive and it could be put to use to make people happier in this lifetime, it's probably not a good thing. Number two, changes in social and personal identity may lead to a quality of life not worth living once reanimated, okay? Having to do with alienation from friends and family, as we mentioned earlier. Then three, there's no guarantee of getting your body back once you've been revived, right? So in other words, question is it worth the wager? You have this problem, right? So number four, is it worth the wager? Then there's the possibility and counter argument of devaluing the value of relationships of the people and family for whom you're living with now, right? So the cryonics enthusiast tacitly suggests that to the life he or she is having now only is temporary and not as valuable as the life in a potential future without those friends and family who one has now, right? So perhaps in these pragmatic arguments, Cron suggests that a simple normal death is preferable to the potential ethical quandaries raised with cryonic suspension. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there and talk more about this later, and have a good one, class. Thank you.